Hello, me. Let's see how many people log on before spring break. If anyone's listening in, this is being recorded. Oh, 1 minute. Well, 6:30. If anyone's watching this, I'll give this a couple minutes. And if no one logs on, I'll still give a little bit of a presentation and we'll go from there. Well, viewers, it's 6:31, spring break. I have a feeling nobody is going to log on. We might get a couple people from SIGGRAPH. So my name is David Schwartz. I'm the director for the School of Interactive Games, and director for the School of Interactive Games and Media at RIT. Also the chair, the current chair, chapter president for the Greater Rochester section for SIGGRAPH. I'd been asked to give an overview of GDC. I've been going to GDC for many, many years. For the students that haven't seen me in a while, or for SIGGRAPH chapter members who have considered going, there's a massive overview. It goes something like this. A number of years ago, I realized students at RIT weren't quite sure what was going on. They weren't sure of what to do at GDC. I noticed that when I was at GDC, the students might try to hang out with me when I'm trying to do some networking for the students. And I thought, you know what, let's just do a boot camp. Let's help people out with this whole thing. And I handed it off to my partner in crime, faculty member, Ian Schreiber, who has been deeply involved with the game industry for many, many years. He took my 2 to 4 page boot camp. It is now expanded to 30 pages, but everything in the world you can think of. Even though it's written mostly from a student perspective, and there's a lot of stuff about RIT in there, I think it actually holds for many others, and including chapter members who might be curious about GDC, might be curious about networking and so forth. So some of the stuff you may see in the document and here as I give some advice may feel like, yeah, that's nothing to do with me, but you might be surprised. I posted the link in chat. What I'll do is make sure that everyone has access to the document on Google. There are several topics, as I said. Some of it, if you know how to fly around and so forth, that's okay. Some students have just never really traveled. Let's see, I have a message. Nope, person can't make it. So what I'll do is start off with some of the highlights and go from there. And if people come in late, I'll grab some of the questions. The first question is, what is GDC? Why is this an issue? The Game Developers Conference actually has a few different versions. The big one is the one that's held in San Francisco. It wasn't always in San Francisco. 1 year was in San Diego, and they just locked in San Francisco. I don't know how many years out it's going to be there, but maybe till the end of time. It's essentially the premier get-together for the game industry and things related to the game industry. I've been to SIGGRAPH, and it reminds me of that in a way. It's just a massive, massive event. There can be thousands and thousands of people. The pandemic obviously has caused a number of changes. So in my mind, there's pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, and then what GDC is going to be like after the pandemic. Going to GDC, if you're a student, doesn't mean getting a job. It means networking and learning, which may lead to a job. For faculty, for staff members, in a school, Yeah, it's pretty much the place to connect with other faculty that you may not see at other conferences. Pretty much everyone who's anyone is going to be at this conference. Uh, and then for, I've seen some industry professionals, people will just go to say, hey, I've always been curious about the game industry. I might want to, figure out what it takes to break in. I just have a passion for games. And unlike something like PAX East or E3 or whatnot, it's not about necessarily fawning over the games. It's about learning how to connect, learning about what's hot, what the trends are, some of the technical problems, some of the design problems, some of the art problems, production, and so forth. There are places for indies to, make connections and learn about selling, their awards and whatnot. So it's a real big way to really connect. For those that are students, think connecting, think networking, not go there and get a job. Just put the job thing on hold and you might find this much more successful. Uh, Ian's done a nice job on the document. Originally, he put in, say, all right, let's be more pragmatic than I was initially. It's expensive. If you're a student at RIT and you're in honors, you have access to travel money. In GCCIS, you have access to IGM travel money and the college travel money. You have to make the case, though. This year, obviously, sort of wonky, but in forthcoming years, you may want to give it a shot. It's very difficult to give a presentation as a student at GDC. Usually we have travel money for students that have gotten into a conference and want to present their work. But there are opportunities at GDC. The Independent Game Festival is there, IGF, and there are other things as well. If you can, you'll see some information there. Look into volunteering at GDC. You pretty much get your way paid. I mean, you have to get there, but imagine an all access pass for about 20 something hours worth of work, and all you do is network afterwards. Even sitting there scanning badges definitely is helpful. So if you haven't volunteered before, if you've been curious about it, hadn't been aware of it, give that a shot. The cost of San Francisco, yeah, food, the hotels and whatnot. I have never actually done this, but Ian had pointed out youth hostels. There are some that might be in sketchy areas. There might be some in better areas. If you're trying to plan this at the last second, hit or miss. If you can do some planning ahead of time, you might find that you're able to be there a bit cheaper than you might realize. Packing essentials if you can. You may find yourself in shock when you see the food prices. So I don't know, energy bars, dried fruit, nuts. These things are very packable and very transportable. You might find that kind of handy. Sometimes I'll actually bring empty water bottles. Figure I'm just not going to buy $2 or $3 bottles of water over and over and over again. Just bring an empty bottle. Throw that into the pack. When you're considering going, one of the things that a lot of students don't realize is the business card. The professionals that might be watching this, yeah, business cards. The card trading is a big thing. With COVID, I'm not entirely sure how much card trading is going to happen. I haven't been to GDC since the pandemic, so there's a pre-COVID and post-COVID GDC, and COVID is still with us. So I'd still say come armed with business cards. Maybe get set up a business card scanner that people might like that. Take photos of badges. Don't necessarily automatically hand a card to somebody. They may not like to necessarily have that contact. In terms of COVID, I was looking last night, check your email for those that are going. There's something called Clear Pass. Don't do it at the last second. I went through it today and was like, oh yeah, I have some steps there. You can't just show up with a vaccination card. You've got to do things ahead of time. The more prep ahead of time, probably better. While packing, consider the weather. The first time I went to California, I'm going to California. It's going to be warm. I didn't quite look to see what was going to happen. It can get cold. It can get rainy. You might find it's handy to bring an umbrella, collapsible, good umbrella. You may have to bring more jackets than you realize. Sometimes I'll bring a headband. Maybe late at night, it might get a low cold. It's been cold before. Sometimes it's really nice. Sometimes I'll bring, instead of a heavy jacket, a decent rain jacket as my sort of warm jacket. So think like thin shell, rain jacket, maybe fleece. You might be surprised. I've brought a backpack quite a few times. This fleece is off, the fleece is on, the jacket's off, the jacket's on. It's kind of handy. You know what? You can pull your shoulders, backpack, really, really handy. The conference bags, not really handy, so pack. Plus, if you've got a tablet or laptop, at least now you're able to carry it. Generally, things are safe with your stuff. On the BART, the train in, which if you take the BART, you might find yourselves saving a little bit of money. Don't assume that you're going to take Uber or Lyft anywhere. It can get very pricey. So there's public transit. Yeah, I did see someone's phone being stolen right out of their hands. So guard your stuff. Pretty much like any city, things happen. Let's see, let's go through. Just picking up some highlights from the conference. Deal with the vaccination stuff ahead of time. Bring masks. Masking is essential. You'll see that. Don't put people at risk. Those of you that are going to network, consider networking. So if people need distance, keep distance. If people don't want you breathing in their face, don't breathe in their face. If you see signs about masking, mask. Just follow the rules. You'll be getting a badge. The badge is everything. Do not lose the badge. This thing is the pass to everything you do. Lose the badge, you have to pay for the whole thing all over again. Yeah, sometimes people will trade badges. It's you can get away with it. It does happen. So if you see somebody who has a name that you may not think that person associated with that name, don't obviously misgender somebody, but maybe someone might have traded a badge at some point. There are a lot of different badges there. Students will sometimes get just like the final pass and come to the expo the last day. The better the badge, the more networking you're going to have. Don't necessarily try to go to every possible session because you get vault access. The sessions are recorded. A lot of times people will maybe say, look, I'm in a great conversation, keep the conversation going. Don't necessarily worry about trying to hit every session. I haven't done too much in the way of tutorials. I know some people have had a lot of success. Those of you who are in school or those of you who might be self-taught, you may actually enjoy the tutorials. It's like, let's test your knowledge. How much do you actually know? And yeah, you'll be sitting around others that are curious. In fact, every moment at GDC is an opportunity to network. You'll see people in the hall, people in line, people walking somewhere, being friendly, striking up conversations. You never know who you're going to, connect with. Always have your cards ready, assuming, again, the whole thing with the cards are using the scanner. I've made some interesting connections just through random meetings. Ian was funny. He had pointed out with about 20,000 people, you might, it's called your shadow buddy. That's why I never really considered this. I had this as an undergraduate. I used to just have the same schedule as this one person. One day, this guy and I just don't recognize that we'd been crossing paths constantly. So we stopped to say hi and became friends. So you may discover you have the same people. And, if you recognize them, say, hey, it's like, I've heard this thing called the shadow buddy, the schedule buddy. Like, just introduce yourself. There can be a lot of that. As you go through and you introduce yourself, it's okay to say that you're a student, and say, oh, I'm here to network. I'm here to learn more about the industry. Here, I'm a few years from graduation. I'm trying to figure out what the pathways are or apply myself. Oh, I have a person here. Hold on. Admit. Hello, Tim. Hello, Tim. I was just telling it's being recorded. So I was telling our viewers all about networking, just going through a sort of stream of consciousness about GDC.
Oh, nice.
Oh, we got Atia. We have some folks from SIGGRAPH. Hello there. I just started talking because of my pal at RIT, Lindsay Herkimer. Our student success person's recording it. So it was just for the people watching, like, but wait, he was just telling us about networking. If you had a student come up to you and say, "Hi, I'm a student. Can I have a job?" What would your reaction be?
Ooh, mine would be, well, thank you for the offer. I would want to see a portfolio. I think that's the strongest thing that students can do is build out a portfolio. And for me, being an emerging tech, I think the portfolio that I would want to see would be pushing the boundary of the program. I don't really care necessarily what it is. I think that in emerging tech, the thing I would want to see most in a person is, are they willing to push past what they're being taught, and how are they applying what they're being taught for new stuff? So if that's what I would want to see. If, however you want to show that off to me, that's up to you, I guess. For us, it was a recording of our VR film, but to me, that's what I would want to see from a student is, if you come up to me and say you want a job, I want to see how are you pushing the envelope, and I want to see somehow, like, what are you doing to push what you've learned, and are you learning more than what your program is giving you?
And to be able, so not to have, be prepared to talk about your work. And for a number of folks at GDC, students say, "Oh, you work at Blizzard. Oh, you work at Bethesda. Oh, you work here." Hey, so there may be opportunities to show your work, and you may discover there are no opportunities. So
Yeah,
for those
and
watching this,
keep a clean phone. Like when you show up, you're gonna show off your work. Don't pull out some, like, if you got a cracked screen protector, replace it. If you got a cracked phone, well, if you can't afford it, I get you. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, if you can, present yourself in the best way possible. Whatever you're about to pull out, if you're pulling out your laptop, you better make sure that laptop is clean. You know what I mean? You want to present yourself in the best way possible. Every single thing you do to that person is making an impression. So don't count out the little things on that. And one of the big things is, like, if your phone looks all cruddy and grimy and you're trying to show me a reel on it, I'm probably going to be mostly distracted by the fact that you're showing me this grimy phone rather than the fact that you're showing me your work. So that's just one hot tip.
yeah, when you go, those of you that are watching this, if you go to the booth, already research the company. What does your company publish? Have it researched. The expo is there. Yes, it takes some time. I've known some cases of students standing in line to say, "Oh, I've already applied online. I've already applied on a website, but, I know, like, oh, hey, I discovered in your website," and ask them a question. Sometimes I've seen students and people at the expo floor, career floor, and they wait till Ian had suggested a document I have there. Find a time where there's a popular session so the floor clears out and then go. Or, sort of sit there and listen in on conversations. A trick I used to use was be there right at the beginning before everyone flooded the floor. Nope, everyone stumbled on that. Yeah, I love your idea of having all your material clean, maybe paper copies, maybe things loaded. Don't assume you have Wi-Fi access, have everything already set to go. If you're demoing something, is it short? Is it punchy? Do you have, is it self-evident? I've seen people on the art side, I've seen people with flip portfolios, and a number just not bringing up jobs unless the booth is, "Hey, we are specifically recruiting." You will see that occasionally. So I've seen that. One of the things,
also a really good idea to consider going sort of before your final year, right? Like, I think Tim, you did that, right?
Actually, hold it, to interrupt. Actually, those watching it, could you two of you introduce yourselves?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Go for it. Atia, I'll let you go first.
I'm Atia Newman. I am a professor with the School of Film and Animation, and heading to GDC. And I've been there actually before as well. It's just been a while, but have a lot of experience with conferences, with the job hunt, and SIGGRAPH, and GDC as well. So definitely, I can tell you there are a lot of, like, really good strategies to adopt. And especially if you're a student, I was going to really recommend aim to do like a trip, sort of like a recurring trip, if you can, especially It really helps to be a student volunteer, because then that covers your expenses and your tickets to some extent as well, which is obviously a big concern for a lot of people. But more importantly, if you're smart enough to not go 2 months before you're graduating, then you're a lot less likely to bring up the dreaded job conversation with people. And that means that you can kind of like, as a sophomore or as a junior, start talking to professionals in the industry and ask them what they want, what they need, what they're interested in, show them what you're good at, ask them for advice for how to develop, and ask them for like, just see if you can build a mentoring or mentorship relationship, because a lot of people in the industry really love actually being mentors to students, and you'll get really great advice, which then you bring back to school, you apply that advice, go back the following year, and voila, they'll see progress and they'll be much more interested in you when you start talking about graduating and needing a job.
And, and just as a side note, when you see Atia and me, the student, I said a little earlier, very early on, I used to see students just hover around me. We're there networking, sometimes for ourselves, but we can do things that maybe you as students can't do. I can say, hey, I'm introducing IGM, and I can tell you what the students are about. If I have the students around me the whole time, can't really do that. I'm not saying don't say hi, but it's like, you see me, maybe wave, but do your own thing. I don't want to have you as a shadow.
Yeah, it does become a little weird if you're like walking around and you've got like sort of little ducklings following you, and you're like, oh, these are my students. I did not give birth to all of them.
I was sort of like listening and like waiting for me to. So speaking of introductions, Tim.
Hey everybody, my name's Tim Stringer. I'm an emerging tech production lead at Optic Sky. I graduated from RIT in 2019, and now I work, like I said, in emerging tech. Do a little bit of everything now, from VR to AR to virtual production to interactive experience. It's the whole gamut of experiences is what I make right now. And so I was in the students' place just a few years ago, and one of the things I think that one of the best tips I ever got was to make business cards and have them readily accessible and not like bent and in your wallet, and like keep them separate. Having a business card is a huge key to getting people to recontact you. If you're talking to somebody and you want them to follow up with you, or you want to talk to them again, being able to be like, here's my business card, is huge. If you don't have it, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Because if you're standing there talking with somebody, it's going really well, and you're like, oh, you can find me later. If they talk to 50 other people that day, they might forget you. So making a memorable business card, I think, is huge, and you can do that with things like social AR, like Snapchat and Instagram.
And yeah, one of the things I said earlier when I went recording solo is bring the business cards, paper version, but come armed with a scanner, phone, take pictures of badges. During pandemic mode, I'm not convinced. Some people may not, like if you automatically hand a card, they may not want it. You may need to, the etiquette's different, and it'll be a little bit of a learning experience for, I think, a number of us coming into that. And we have another person, Erica Mesh, who's presenting virtually.
Yeah, I couldn't quite bring myself to sit on a tin can.
So let's see. So things I've talked about with the students are, there are different kinds of badges, and trying to get, yes, if you can get all access. I've talked about volunteering. You get about 20 hours of work, and during that you're still networking. And imagine getting a free all access pass badge. After that, trying to get into IGF if you can, trying to talk to departments about travel money. It's not impossible. One of the questions that comes up is, all right, I'm there at GDC, I've never been there. There is a lot. So do try to look at it ahead of time. I've been going to GDC since 2004, and there have been some years that's been even more massive. I figured this year, perhaps a little smaller. It can seem overwhelming. My take is, try to be in situations where you're going to meet a lot of people. If you're at an event where there are a lot of presentations, you're not really talking to people. It's cool to go to an award show. It's a way to sort of chill out. But again, being online for things, walking the floor, not necessarily being in the career area, but taking a look at the company expo. It's like, oh, hey, there's a company that sells this. Those of you who have seen me with OptiTrack, I always go to OptiTrack. I haven't been able to get OptiTrack at RIT, at least in IGM, but I've got a lot of the OptiTrack t-shirts. They recognize me. I go talk to them. It's hilarious. And like, I had actually wrote them like, I have every OptiTrack t-shirt. I've got the full collection. They think this is hilarious. You know, Tia and Tim, in terms of other places to meet lots of people. I didn't get to the parties yet. We'll get to that.
Say like the mixers and stuff are obviously like really, really great, but they're also like I personally really enjoy going to talks because I also just go to learn in those situations where I'm just obsessed with like, all right, what's the new nerdy stuff they did or this, that, what, which can be really good. But they also just have like, you know, they will have sort of like cafe areas and stuff, which, you know, especially when you're at the conference, you're going to want to stop and eat and stuff. Like those are always just great opportunities, you know, to talk to people and stuff like that, to just go and like spark up a conversation and ask a couple of questions, you know. And I think one of the best ways to really network or be noticed is when you're not going there with an agenda, because I mean, people can smell an agenda from like miles away, right? So if you go there just because you're honestly interested in what they're selling or what they're making, that could be a lot of fun. One of the best moments I've had is at the Wacom booth because you know, they set up a thing where they let you draw, and like we just got into this whole like interactive thing of like one person would draw something and then somebody would draw something back, and then, you know, it gathered a crowd and all that stuff. Like, you know, so it helps to just be bold and kind of jump into activities if there are any, because again, that's where you get the most interesting sparks and the most interesting conversations.
Did anybody here get into any parties? Because I've gotten into parties.
I've never been to GDC, so I'm bummed to miss it this year. But
I'm sorry.
Along the lines of, you were mentioning, GDC calls it CAs for
Yeah,
the
conference
student volunteers,
associates.
right? I went to ICSE, the Software Engineering Conference, as a student volunteer several years ago, and can't recommend. I mean, that's amazing. The like one, you know, your pass is paid, and you know, it's a foot in the door, but you get a front row seat at all the sessions you're the volunteer for. I was running the mic for the Q&A for the keynote from Grady Booch, who's like my idol.
Wow.
And so though I got my photo taken with him and got to have a conversation with me, like you get opportunities and access you would never get even like as a speaker there or something else.
So the parties are rather infamous at GDC. You may get invited, you might not get invited. There might be, oh, I remember Zynga, you know, invited like everybody with. So you might be at a party like, wow, I've been invited to X company's party, and turns out you see a sea of people and everyone's shouting in each other's ears. Again, pandemic, I'm not entirely sure how this is going to work. To get invited, you got to get to know people. To get to know people, you've got to go around and listen in and connect. You know, we are not at GDC yet. There are people watching this. Go on LinkedIn or go on Twitter. Find alumni from your school. The parties do exist. There is a lot of drinking. If you are not of drinking age, which is 21, don't suddenly discover it's time to drink.
Yeah, and it's a really bad idea to be drinking in a conference far away, where, especially in a place where you're hoping to make professional connections, you don't want to try drinking, especially for the first time, or even in the early years of your drinking life. Or, I mean, for some people, they should never drink around other people. So, you know, if you are one of those, don't drink. Like, you can absolutely be like, I mean, I drink Coke, you know, like I drink soft drinks. I don't bother to drink like hard liquor or anything of the sort, because it's not worth it and you don't remember enough, right? So yeah, don't go into like weird habits because you're thinking, you know, let's be cool and whatever. Nobody thinks it's
cool. Ian had taken this. For those that are watching, the SIGGRAPH members, I'll make sure I send out the link. He went through quite a bit more details. Erica, my 4-page document, 2 to 4 page document became 37 pages. So Ian and I are in contact. I'm thrilled. So we're still
I skimmed this last night because I'm in the co-op careers, my course is Shell, so I saw the update and went, oh,
I actually read it through Grammarly. Like
none
Ian,
of this surprised me.
that's what I was saying there fiddly. So we it's like there's called version control. He and I need to get our act together. Just think about all the crap that one can do in their lives. You're never gonna know who you're gonna cross paths with. You never know who you're gonna puke on. You're trying to make a really good impression. Ian makes the case that you can not outdrink anybody in the game industry. Don't try. No one should force a drink on you, nor should you force a drink on somebody. And it is interesting, the caffeine. If you're not a big caffeine person, yeah, you can get yourself pretty wired. That happens to me. There's a whole section on GDC is not a place to hook up. It's just not. I don't know, maybe you'll meet people, but could you imagine you're at an interview 2 years from now and wait a minute, that's a person I met at GDC and they're interviewing you. Awkward.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not a place for like your college parties or anything of the sort. It might feel like it has a real college atmosphere, but there are like real professionals there, and it works. It can hound you in your future. So you don't want to be the person who's known for having made a scene in the GDC of 2022 when finally people came out of the pandemic and they'd forgotten all of their manners about how to interact, right? So that's going to be the big question right now. Is there's a lot of conversations about like we have to get our you have to get your vaccination status approved, you have to make sure that you're able to be in, you have to stay masked all the time, you have to keep your distance. California has strict laws about underage drinking, and is it Clear Pass or is it Green Pass?
I thought it was clear. It was Clear Pass. I got the email today.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's why I forwarded it to you.
You forwarded it, yeah.
Yeah, because it's buried in my spam.
Mine too, but yeah. So these are there, like they're there for your information as well. But take it for what that means as well, right? The subliminal message of like it means that they have a set of rules. They want you to know what the rules are before you get there, so that you don't become that weird person who's like making it unhappy and unfriendly for everyone else.
And GDC, there is a code of conduct that's posted. In fact, Erica, so in IGM, we have a diversity and inclusion task force. We actually started with GDC's code of conduct. It's very inclusive. It's really well written. And so it's worth reading, not just for GDC, just for life. Things can get very tense at GDC. They know that, people are very passionate about games. It's worth taking the time to read this. Don't be that person that gets kicked out. Don't be creepy. Don't stalk anybody. Don't misgender. Just think about creating a very wide, inclusive environment. People will dress in interesting fashion. I have seen hair color of all kinds of things, and it's quirky. But it's take the time to think about it. At the same time, don't come in a full suit unless that is a costume of sorts. This is not business formal, maybe business casual for some. Many of us will just be in t-shirts and jeans, and that's good. It's relaxed. So it's worth taking the time. There we go. I just want to make sure that people were aware that the T have talked about things. So code of conduct. Let's see what else.
I got something, Dave.
Go for it.
Something. Yeah, I think when I was a student going to conferences, I think I was blinded by like the big three, right? Like I think that I was always blinded by like you want to find the people who work at the biggest companies, right? Like the companies you wish you could work for. I think that I missed out on opportunities to network with people who might have forwarded my career more if I had, actually sought them out, right? Like I wouldn't discount anybody and the interactions that you might have with them. Don't go like headhunting for the like only the people at this one studio. You know what I mean? That you're going to limit your options pretty heavily there, and you never know where opportunity is going to come from. I always thought I wanted to work at Disney, and now I don't do anything like that, but I'm very happy with what I do. You know what I mean? And yeah, that's just something that I wish I would have done more as a student, is not like been blinded by the idol of the big studios, right?
Yeah, and a lot of the recruiters there, imagine you say the same thing 8 hours a day, 3 days in a row. You get tired. You just get tired. And no, it's like to come in, you don't have to shoot yourself down, but to try to just give them a break makes a difference.
Right. But that being said, having been a volunteer at SIGGRAPH, you did get behind the scenes access, sort of like what Erica was talking about, where you will get more private time with those studios. Usually they're some of the biggest sponsors of the conference. So usually they're the ones who are there, and excited to be there. And they gave like private portfolio reviews to the volunteers that were not given out to the rest of everybody. You know what I mean? So getting in as a volunteer, I would highly recommend, if not just to network with the plethora of other students who are going to be going into the industry, having like your army of people that it's much easier to network peer to peer like that. And it's great to see what other schools are doing, and it's much more relaxed when you're talking to another student. So if you can get in the volunteer program, do it.
Yeah, never discount the value of networking with peers really over other people, because those are connections you can maintain. And then along those lines, especially when everybody's dressed casual, don't make assumptions about if the person sitting next to you is important or not. You might not know who they are. It could be that you just happen to sit next to, and like I've been 20 minutes into a conversation with somebody and go, oh, you're that, so you wrote that paper. Oh, okay. Right. Don't talk to everybody. Or at least smile at everybody, or don't be dismissive, because you never know.
Yeah. One time I was working as a volunteer, and some dude walked up to me in a cool Hawaiian shirt, and I was like, oh, nice shirt. Sorry, this area is closed. And it was Ed Catmull. And I was like, oh, you're Ed Catmull. And like had, like a fangirl moment. I was like, my blood rushed from my head. I was like, oh my God, I just told the founder of Pixar that he couldn't go into the immersive pavilion. Oh my God. But yeah, again, you don't know. They're just walking around. They're just regular people though. So don't be intimidated.
Masks, and nobody's going to look like how their headshot used to look like. And,
and a lot of people haven't gotten a haircut in a year and a half. So yeah, there's going to be a lot.
And there is actually quite a bit of networking opportunity, even at the lowest pass down here, the Expo Pass.
Yeah.
So there's still much that can be done. When you mentioned networking with students, one of the things I've generally not liked is I've often suggested to our students, if they're watching from RIT, we do a pretty good job, you may not believe it, but of explaining the industry, pathways into the industry, how to build a portfolio, how to build a resume. There are a lot of sessions that will go over it again. If you tuned us out, okay, go to those sessions. But my take is, you can ask us that. Take the time at the conference, do other things. I saw a student once, no, I want to see what they say. Okay, but I call the student sessions kind of the sacrificial anodes. Like by getting the students to all go to how to build a resume, they're not on the floor.
Yeah.
So, I'm not saying the session
students, they just need to hear it from not their professors.
Yeah, I'm not saying they're bad. They're actually fantastic. I had spent quite a few years going to those things. So those students that say, wow, Schwartz really is pretty good at helping us, with resumes and whatnot. Where did I get it from? I went to those sessions. So let me go to the sessions. You go to something else. So I'll go there for a little touch ups like, no, I know that. No, wait, that's new. Okay, mark that down. So just put that out there. Yeah, go for it.
I just say mix it up. Don't do everything all in one track, even if that's what you're interested in. It's an opportunity to go, wow, I have no experience with that. I'm going to go get an introduction to it from the person that does this.
If you're at
that's
talks,
valuable.
Yeah, it's like Ian did this. You ever have somebody go, like right after a talk, someone who now reads a 20-page manifesto before they get to the question? please don't do that. Don't try to outshine or do gotchas with the speakers. Ian gave some advice. Talk to the person next to you. You know, I'm new to this. If I ask this question, am I being a it's like, you know, like, say, can I run this past you? Yeah, it's the people tend to mob the speakers at the end. Again, pandemic, I'm not sure how that's really going to happen. We may need space bubbles. Again, try to use every opportunity to act in professional fashion. A lot of the people there have been working a long time at this.
So I do know with Q&A, any speakers that are presenting remotely, the logistics appear to be, if it's like an in-person session, so like Educator Summit, I think I'm the only one presenting remotely. I don't get a Q&A, not really. Or maybe a little bit during my time, that's a little unclear. But it sounds like there's usually also just kind of a casual at the end of the day in person, like with anybody who spoke. That's not happening with anybody that's remote. So that will be a little different. Anybody that's speaking remote to an in-person audience, the amount of interaction I think is going to be a little more limited. It's unclear to me if there's going to be any Zoom chat, that kind of stuff. I know I'm going to get a Zoom link. We know that if you have an online virtual pass, anyone with an online virtual pass will, it looks like, has access to any of the speakers who have decided to present remotely. So online virtual pass, I'm the only Educator Summit talk that's going to be available until they all go to GDC Vault, and then everybody gets access. But I don't know if that means that my talk is actually hybrid and I'm taking questions from both, or I'm taking no questions, or so in general, if you're there in person, just be prepared for, I think that's going to be a little awkward. And I'm not sure that anybody really knows what that's going to look like right now.
That's why I'm going to be taking notes, because I'm coming into this. In the past, I would tell you, go to this person, go to this thing, go to, it's just now I can speak in generalities.
Yeah,
It's
like right now it's definitely they're and it sounds like it as well, like they're you know, a lot of the stuff that they're setting out is very much like, be prepared, this is hybrid, we don't know exactly how this is going to play out, you know. So there is a little bit of that you know, coming into play as well, where, you know, they're like, well, we are going to have like a, you know, like what you said, like a lounge for a Q&A and possibility like meeting with other speakers and stuff, but they don't entirely know what the numbers are going to be and how comfortable you'll be. And, you know, so it sounds like, you know, like there are a lot of things that are still very much in flux. But I think, you know, everything that we've already covered, especially I'll go back to the code of conduct, but realistically, it's just, if you keep an open mind and stay flexible with whatever comes, then chances are you'll have a good time and get something positive out of it. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, that's the most that anyone can expect, right? Like, you're not going to guarantee yourself a job, you're not going to guarantee anything, but if you can have a good experience, make one good impression, you know, it could be a first step to a really good beginning, you know? So
yeah, there are some people. Oh, go for it.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I was going to echo that same sentiment, basically. Like, if nothing else, leave inspired. You know what I mean? Like, you might go to talks that go way over your head, and you might not talk to anybody who wants to hire you. But at the end of the day, if you leave inspired, you're going to go home and make work that will inspire others. And that's the type of stuff that gets you hired. So even if you don't make the connections that you wish you were going to make, if you come back to wherever or go home and you feel creatively energized because of GDC, then you did it right.
And if there are any SIGGRAPH chapters that are watching this, you know, some folks that, no, I'm not a student. The game industry, some of the companies will not bring in students. They want seasoned professionals. So if you're out there doing something in software or design or whatever, and it's connected, there are some folks there that are like, wait, that's not a student. Who's that? Yeah, there are some people looking for mid-career transition in the industry. That GDC, this can happen. And I think actually, I often encourage people. I've met somebody once at an enterprise company, just loved games and just was curious. Went there. I ended up striking up a long conversation about just enterprise software, and it was great conversation, and really cleared a few things, like, you know, and we were trying to get RET students into his company. It was just, yeah, I've met some professionals. Question for Tim and Atia, footwear. How much walking did you do?
oh, a ton. Most comfortable shoes. Yeah, although I think like the first time when I went to SIGGRAPH, this was I was studying in New York and a whole bunch of us went. Like I did it in heels. Like it hurt my feet because I think we would do like 10,000 steps a day or more, and like I was so used to wearing heels and walking around on subways and running and stuff that I was like I did the whole thing. But now I'm like a lot less walky, so I'm probably gonna do way more comfortable shoes.
Um,
Yeah.
But you're on your feet a lot, like all the time.
what is security like? Should people plan on being able to bring a bag?
Yeah.
Do you sure you wear something with pockets? I'm
Yeah,
trying to
so
think
early
how
and
to do
when I was doing my solo thing, I recommended bring a backpack. Don't use the I mean, keep the conference bag. They're great, tend to be good shopping bags. Over the shoulder backpack that's large, and I use it as my purse. All right, I've got my bring empty water bottle because it's just expensive to keep buying water bottles, and it's a waste of resources. There is security there. I'm curious what pandemic security is like. I suspect it's changed. Um, I mentioned the badge earlier. If you do not have that badge, Ian talks about Will Wright, luminary of the game industry, couldn't get into his own session because he forgot his badge. I don't know how the story ended. I was going to Google on this thing. It's like he's presenting and they wouldn't let him in. No badge. You must have that badge. They're very keen on that.
Yeah.
Let's
But
see.
that's also because this is such a like people like really work hard to get into here as well, right? Like these are expensive conferences, so they take their security seriously. So
I once had a conversation with an alum, one of our alums, no, a different alum, different university, and just engrossing conversation. We looked over, someone just walking down the street, like, standing there, found this engrossing. Yeah, if you've never been to San Francisco, if you do get some time, like what I had done, I don't know if you can even do this anymore. I flagged a taxi driver, said, give me a tour. I paid $100 and she drove me around all over San Francisco.
what is it called? The Imaginarium? Something? What's the, God, I don't remember the name of it. Go there.
Oh, quick tip though, for clothing and stuff as well. A quick thing would be always carry a sweater because
Yep,
if
I
you're
got
in the
that one
conference hall
earlier.
all the time, yeah, you're gonna freeze.
And that's
So,
where it's at the pack. So this way you can
Exactly.
layer on, layer off, layer on. I've suggested if you've got a really good rain jacket or poncho, something that's foldable, collapsible, if you don't have to always deal with the umbrella, that's handy. Collapsible umbrella, maybe. Yeah, if you were to see I'll have a green pack, say, all right, Schwartz, what's in that pack? I'll show you all the stuff that's in there. Paper and pencils. I mean, what if your device goes? Oh, this came up. This not my idea, not Ian's idea. Somebody at GDC brings power strips.
Mm-hmm.
You become the most popular person. It's such a good idea.
Definitely carrying chargers is a big thing as well. Like having a charger for your phone. Oh my God, so important.
Yeah, I would also carry Advil or like Tylenol or something. If you get a headache, you don't want that to bring you down. You know what I mean? You want to be living your best life, and a headache can ruin the whole thing.
There are people, pre-pandemic people, the GDC crud, people just gets a super spreader for colds. I'm hoping with the mask, maybe people won't be, catching cold so much. In walking around, San Francisco is hilly. Those of us in Rochester, I was thinking, is it Bailey? John, I always get the two streets where you go up and then down to Lehigh Station or East River Road.
That's East River.
Yeah, imagine just going up and down. So if you want to practice, go up and down and up and down and up and down. See, travel, you might think, do I need to drive? No, don't get a rental car. You'll regret it. You will pay a fortune. There is the trains.
Use the trains,
the buses.
Yeah, and they all work. Like they're good.
You may, if you're going to use them a lot, you may want to get one of I forgot what the card is called. There's a card. You just
a little pass. Yeah.
Really handy, and charge it up. see what else. Do some,
What's the weather going to be like at this time?
it's usually a little
or-
cold.
Oh.
I haven't, looked that far ahead. So that's why, let's have layers. It's
Are
really
we
handy.
thinking Rochester cold or like?
No.
Yeah, no,
But-
right? Like
But like
Yeah.
wet and cold,
Yeah.
maybe.
cold, yeah.
Like
Really?
sort of like early, mid to late fall. There are some real sunny days.
The Bay Area is always covered in like fog, and it's right on the ocean, so it will always feel colder than. It's not like you're like, oh, I'm going to California, it's gonna be warm. No, the Bay Area is not the same.
Oh God, it's been a while. It's been 2 years. There's the Whataburger that I like. It's worth ahead of time taking a look to see the restaurants nearby. I have noticed
and
that
food is
if
there,
if you've
supposedly
got
amazing.
like half an hour between sessions, forget it. Like if there are lines, so you
Yeah.
may want to have some strategic snacks.
For sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know you asked about shoes a little while ago. I think my go-to was always Vans at conferences, because you can get Vans that are like, you can kind of keep them nice and they look presentable, but also are kind of comfortable at the same time. You know what I mean? Like if you throw some Vans on with a decent pair of jeans and a t-shirt, you're probably well on your way to being comfortable and somewhat presentable to everybody you talk to.
Depending on what security's like and depending on shoes, I made the mistake traveling at one point with shoes I thought would be totally fine. I had TSA pre-check and all that kind of stuff. My shoes, the footbed had a little bit of a metal shank in it to make the arch, and I kept setting off metal detectors.
Yeah,
It was and it was a simple, like kind of like loafer or something. It wasn't.
that doesn't happen at GDC.
Yeah,
but
totally.
Expo, I don't know.
women's shoes, sometimes it's unpredictable.
Women's shoes are, and you really want to question whether or not you want to go open-toed or whatever. Like honestly, I think that's like really a more personal call if we're coming back to shoes on that, because I personally prefer not to have my toes open in case somebody is klutzy and steps on them.
There can be crowds on Market Street.
There can be crowds, exactly. So yeah, like that would be just something to keep track of. But yeah, I gotta get going.
Okay.
I actually have another thing. But thanks for doing this as well.
Yeah, and so I'll see you in another week. And we'll stay on for a few more minutes, see if there are other things.
Nice to meet
thank
you. Bye.
Nice to meet you too. See you, Tim.
Bye.
The expo floor bag swag. I don't know what the swag situation is going to be like this year. Again, people handing stuff, handing, touching.
Is there anything like the RenderMan teapot that's like a must-have?
Oh God. There's usually a few things.
Feeling really sad about my decision to not go. Like
there's usually like, where did you get the plastic sword? Or where did you get the glowy thing? Or where did you get? There's always, you'll see one or two people like, oh yeah, it's over at.
I expect you to bring me back something cool.
Yeah, the booth crawl. I didn't realize the booth crawl what it was until further in, and then oh my God, the booth crawl. They basically shut almost everything down, and they just want everyone to go to the expo, and they have strategically placed beers, their taps at certain locations. Again, the power of being 21 and maybe being a little older. So I found that's like you've got the stuff, you got the swag, you got the drink, and then you got it's like too much. The backpack. Let's see what else. There was other things I've come up with. Other things, Tim?
I mean, planning what talks you want to go to, looking at the schedule, have backup plans, right?
Buddy.
Yeah, a buddy is good.
Always a good. Yeah, a buddy's always a good thing to have, whether you're going to anywhere. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, if you're in a party and
yeah.
Have like certain phrases if you get into trouble.
Yeah, I think having a friend is good for two reasons. Well, one, you guys can like know where each other are at all times, and you can like split up and sometimes get more info because you guys can split up and go to like two different talks, and then it's like, oh, I want to go to both these things at the same time. But always having a buddy is good, just because you gotta watch out for each other. Not saying anybody's ill-intended, but sometimes at conferences people get overzealous, and having a backup plan, like Erica, you were just saying, I think having a buddy is a great way to implement
And at parties, because alcohol can get involved, you may be in a situation where you need to get out of there.
Or having somebody walk up, like anybody that knows you a little well enough and goes, wow, they're really trapped in that conversation. I'm gonna walk up and go, oh, hey, we need to get to this talk. It's not always because something horrible is happening, just to be clear, but sometimes to just help things move along can be really nice.
And if you do see us and like you're stuck, ask us a question. It's like, yeah, as much as we don't want the little tucklings of the shadows, like if you do get a little overwhelmed, like, wait, what was I supposed to say again? How do I approach this conversation? It's like, we can give a few tips here and there. Okay. Thanks for the checkup. The extreme of it is I once had a student's parents call me and ask where the student was. And I didn't even know the student was at the conference. If we didn't send the person there on RIT's dime, I was not aware of that person being there. Sorry, I could not help them. So
this year's a little unique. We're going to have a decent, I'm going to be here remote. We've got a decent number of students, virtual passes. I've been trying to think about on this end, how do we want to participate, but also what can we do to support people that are there in person? So we can also be the backups, or not hard for us to be buddies, right? We're remote, but if we have a group Slack chat or something else that everybody that's there in person and people here doing stuff with GDC, we can keep in touch.
Actually, if anyone's still watching this, I'm glad Erica's here. I just had an idea, brainstorm. A few of us have all access passes. Sometimes we get overwhelmed. I could go like so many places. Let's say I get a message, hey, Schwartz, go there. Okay.
Oh, you're gonna get a list from me, right? Because there's gonna be talks that as a speaker, I'm supposed to have an all access pass, but I'm not going in person. So I only get access to whatever is going to be available remote. And so the chance to ask questions is going to be limited, right? So there might be hey, will you please go to this one for me and take notes on this or ask this question or that type of thing.
For those watching, myself, Atia, and Weez were there with good passes. Maybe if we don't have something in particular, let us know. And it's like, it'll be interesting. Oh, I would not have considered going to that. So that's actually kind of handy. I can imagine getting up there. Yeah, back at Rochester, 50 people are curious about this question. And I asked the question. I think they would find this hilarious.
Or you notice one that you're going to is going to be a remote speaker and it's going to be live online anyway. You go, hey, is someone back home going to watch that? Maybe I don't bother going.
So Tim,
because someone here is going to. We can. It's a strange year, but I think we can take advantage of it.
When you came back from GDC, the mistake I made was, did you take notes and compile them? Did you do a postmortem? Do you wish you did a postmortem?
Yeah. Every conference I go to, I'm always like, oh, I'm going to take better notes, or, the funniest thing is I still have, like, from my second year at SIGGRAPH, I have like all the business cards I collected. I haven't talked to like anybody, but I still have like every business card I collected from that thing. So I guess that's the best I've ever done. But I think the best thing that ever happened to me at a conference was trying VR for the first time, because that's what got me into where I am today. If I didn't go to SIGGRAPH and try VR, I would have thought VR was a Google Cardboard. And I tried to Vive on for the first time at SIGGRAPH, and it blew my mind. It blew my mind.
There's a lot to be said for random. Yes, structuring it, but align for unstructured conversations, unstructured time, never knowing who you're going to run into and letting yourself just learn and discover. Sometimes I've said to folks that if this were dating, you don't go up to somebody like, hey, you look interesting, let's get married. So that's like, no. That doesn't. So, hey, this job looks good, you should hire me. Not going to happen. It's like, oh, it's in a random conversation that somebody's been in the industry for a couple of years. What pathway did you take? What part of, did you have a portfolio, and what part of portfolio struck you as interesting? What kind of questions did they ask you at the interview? Not what did they ask you? What kinds of questions? Did you never? You can ask. It's like things, and and then if you find that's a long conversation, say, oh, hey, I noticed we've been going for a few minutes. It's a bit, a lot of stuff. If it's like, hey, could we trade information? And, because let you go. And so that you sort of acknowledge. And if they want to keep talking, it's like, no, hey, it's like, let's talk more. Let's meet up for lunch. Oh, hey, did you hear about the party? It's just sort of giving them a chance. I think that a lot of people in the game industry, maybe a few had jobs handed to them, but they were struggling too. So I think they want to give back. It just can get overwhelming. 100 people all vying for one job. So people want to help. It just have to be delicate about it and patient.
Is there an app? Is there an app you can download? I know SIGGRAPH usually has an app that helps you plan out your day.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything.
There is a GDC thing and some schedule, and it like sends. I
can log in and there's a schedule viewer on the website, but I haven't seen anything else.
Yeah, there's something.
Yeah.
I'm finding that just after having a 2-year gap, I've gotten stale. So
well, and I think things are like that. Last year was all virtual. I think they're still sorting some stuff out. Depending on, speaking of like types of things to do and talks and that kind of stuff, depending on the type of pass you have, don't just go to headliners and major talks and things like that. Panel discussions and workshops are incredible. One of the first major conference I went to, it's going on 10 years ago. The one I still remember and talk about and reference teaching and everything else was a panel discussion that was just, what is technical debt? Like base concept, right? But they got like the top 5 names in the software industry to come and talk about it. And it wasn't about the what is it? It was the back and forth between these people. Oh, I do this and I do this, and their perspectives on it, you don't get anywhere else.
I once, it's for those that have the better pass, when Spore was about to come out, Spore, whatever issues you may have with the game, it was big before it came out. Everyone wanted to be at that session. I was curious. I thought, I'm going to wait online for an hour. It's standing room only. You know what? It's like, someone will tell me what happened there. Let's pick a different session. So counter right at the same time as Spore, which was ginormous, was BK Games. Do you remember Sneak King? Burger King did 3 Xbox games.
Oh God, I do remember hearing about
I went to that presentation and I had the best time. And to this day, I still remember the presentation. I had a whole overview of the trials and tribulations of advergaming, how this game company, I forget who they were already, but I have the games. I tracked them down. I have all 3 of them. How they worked with Microsoft and Burger King. And it's like, I remember this session. So again, if I were trying to network some more, who knows? I mean, maybe I could have done a little bit more for the students. I just went there out of my own curiosity. Being like 5 other people, it was hilarious. Let's see. Other stuff.
I think that's the majority of what I know, at least from SIGGRAPH.
Yeah. So when you come back, do yourself a favor. Don't be like us. Compile your notes.
Oh, I mean, I did. I mean, yeah, ICSI, I did. I was trying to find when I went, because I didn't want to have as much as possible a bag and other stuff. I had a tiny little, like the smallest little moleskin notebooks you can get, the little thin ones. I had one of those tucked into my badge pass. And so I would just, and a pen clipped to the thing. I would just scribble stuff. Students, when you're taking notes, it's not a class. You don't have to take exhaustive notes. You can, in a 20-minute talk, write down one phrase of the thing you want to remember, or especially GDC, this stuff's going to be in the vault. You're not getting tested on it. You're just jotting down what you think is cool.
You get cards, write something about the card.
So you remember who that person is, write a note on the back of the card and stick it someplace that you'll remember it.
If you've got a spreadsheet, don't be like me and like return with a pile of notes. Yep, I have gone from a conference. The set of notes is still here. I have not gone through. Mark this down, spreadsheet. Do yourself a favor. I know some people that will try to connect on LinkedIn that same night, maybe go through the card. you're with people, hotel room, maybe trade cards, compile it. Yeah, it's just, think of it as structured. Give yourself a break when you come back. This is exhausting. I remember the first few GDCs, I was just drained. Unfortunately, you know, life marches on. Those of you that are students, like, we're still going. Those of you that are going and are still listening to this, work ahead in your classes. Don't try to catch up afterwards. Do the stuff now the best you possibly can. Yeah, it is spring break. You know, there have been times when GDC and spring break are right on top of each other. Amazing. Didn't happen. Sort of.
Yeah, well, and realistically, GDC is not likely, faculty aren't likely to consider it an extenuating circumstance. You probably aren't going to get extensions or things like that.
IGM faculty, perhaps. So work
With a little notice and that kind of stuff, but I wouldn't count on it. Don't assume you will.
Yeah, and yeah, so why don't we call it here? Thanks for showing up.
Yeah, I was in another training until 7, but I figured I'd at least pop my head in because I was already in.
And many thanks to Ian Schreiber, who's still out there,
Yeah.
for continuing the notes. There'll be a link to the 37 pages.
Oh, he shared, I guess while we're still recording, hold on. I gotta find it because he shared in with the capstone students earlier. There, where is it?
Trust me,
There is
anyone's
still a
looking at this.
There is still
Everything you think of is in that document.
There is still a playtest prototype night happening at GDC. And there's a Facebook event for it. And here's the link.
Oh, okay.
For folks that are gonna be there. I think when you record this, the chat, I don't know if the chat's going to be alongside it.
Yeah, you know what I'll do, even though it's a real easy way of doing this, share the screen.
Yeah,
People
if you
can get
open
the
it,
URL.
open it and share the screen so they know the title to search for. Yeah,
Yeah, hold on.
they
There
can
we go.
pause.
I know, I'm not gonna have to write that down.
Well, it's Facebook.
hit
They can
Google,
search, if you
GDC
search the
first.
title, that should be
Yeah.
enough. But yeah,
So,
so that night is happening. It's not a official RIT thing or anything, but know that that's
to be.
there. Yeah.
it may one day be again. I think next year, assuming there isn't, you know, the next wave of variants, things may be a little different. Yeah, thank you. And then, so if anybody has any questions, let me know. I don't know if anyone's watching this video. Who knows? Fast forwarding, it's like, wow, this was really random. Many thanks to SIGGRAPH for being a co-sponsor of this. If you're interested in joining the Greater Rochester SIGGRAPH, you got Tim over there. Ping me, ping Kim. Our website, just hit SIGGRAPH Rochester, you'll find it. You can join through that. And I think that's it. Many thanks to Lindsay Herkimer, who also organized this from RIT and IGM. All right, thanks everybody. Closing down. Okay, good night.
Night.